everyone. Thank you for joining me for another entry into our reading journal. I am Voodoo Pickles, and today we are going to be talking about Congo. Congo was written by Michael Crichton. It was published in 1980, and the genres are listed as fiction, science fiction, and thriller. So Congo was started off in the first chapters talking about the Earth Resources Technology team that was sent to Africa, and this team is being overseen stateside, I think in Texas. I'm pretty sure Texas, by Karen Ross. So she's overseeing this team. They're trying to find some diamonds in Africa to sell off to their clients. This is the first time she's overseeing one of these types of missions, a field team. She is the youngest person in this whole department, so she's super excited, super great. She does one of their scheduled call-in checks, and there is an attack that happens on this team in Africa. And when this attack happens, they see some of it from the video feed that's going up. You get to see some people that are, they don't get to see them being killed, but you get to see them dead. And there's a way that you're able to see what is attacking them, but it's very blurry, it's very fast. This team is attacked, she informs her superior, and then she starts using all of the technological resources that are available to this company to try and find what attack the team. And while she's doing this, her boss Travis is saying that, well, we can't lose this amount of money on this contract. We're gonna have to send another team out there, or cut our losses. And he starts setting people up to see if, is the risk worth it. So while he's doing that, Karen is still trying to figure out what is going on with this animal, this thing that hit her team. And she's able to find out that it's an animal, getting the image as enhanced and zoomed in this area and adjusted as best as it can be. She's able to see that it looks like some type of ape. However, she's like, this isn't my area of expertise. I don't really know what this is. I can just say what it looks like. And Karen is, like I said, the youngest team in her department in the organization. She is also super smart. And she decides to tell her boss that, hey, I want to continue this contract. I want to go with my own team to find this team and complete the contract. And Travis is very kind of indulgent as a boss, but he's also like, if anybody were to find the team and complete this contract, it would be her. She's super headstrong, super stubborn, super smart, super resourceful. He even has like a whole psychological profile on her that pretty much says she's very goal oriented and will hurt people. Not like physically, but she'll step on people to get to her goals. Like, she's that type of person. And shouldn't be sent to the field untested. So that's kind of what it's saying there. And he's like, this is a gamble, but she's already decided she wants to go. So he's like, can't really stop her now, and I might as well get what the company might as well get what we can out of her from this thing. So she decides to go to one of the top primatologists. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. Primatologists that are in the country. It takes her to California, where she meets Peter Elliott. Peter Elliott is a primatologist, and he is actively in a project that's called Project Amy. Project Amy centers around a silverback gorilla named Amy, who was given to the university by a private owner, and Peter decided that he's going to figure out the capabilities of her understanding language and being able to speak back to humans. And he's planning on using this information to be able to take her into the wild and kind of not merge together, but use the way that she can communicate with people as a way of communicating with wild silverback gorillas. So that's his whole plan. That's what he wants to do. He wants to teach her all of these things, and then when he thinks she's ready, take her to a wild area, or either bring a wild silverback gorilla to her and have them communicate. And then she can communicate with Peter and his team, and they can kind of build the language that way to learn more about silverback gorillas. And Amy was raised when she was a little baby, like a little baby gorilla, from Peter and his team. And right now she is about the maturity and like mental capacity of a teenage girl. So she's very moody, very moody. And we spend a lot of the book explaining like how she's moody and what way she's moody and how that kind of affects what's going on. And before Karen gets there, Peter noticed and is starting to note down that Amy is having nightmares. And her nightmares seem to be very specific. She's able to paint, and the paintings that she is doing, there's a lot of greens, there's a lot of reds. He kind of doesn't know what it is, but it does seem to have like a structure to it. It looks like one scene that's being painted by a gorilla. So he's not really understanding what's wrong with her. And while she's having nightmares, he's also fighting for funding. He's meeting with all of these big donators to the college to try and have them donate to Project Amy. And he's really worried that if he cannot get the funding that he needs, that they're going to take Amy away from him and put her in a zoo, and all of his years of research is going to be wasted. So that's kind of Peter's mindset. And he's dealing with this. He's already had like some luncheon type things with dinners with rich donor people, and he's just like, this is a terrible thing. This is not going to happen. We're not going to be able to complete this project. And he's trying to softball it to his team to let them know might be time to get those resumes sorted. But then he's also thinking like, what if I just take Amy to Africa? What if I just take her? Like, they can't do anything once she's gone. Like, once she's reintegrated back into I can't remember what it's called. A group, a bunch. It's not a pod. I remember that. It's not a pod. A thing of gorillas. Like, they can't get her back. And he was like, and he'll be in Africa. And he's like, I don't know where I'd go after that. And he's kind of daydreaming on, maybe I'll go to South America, maybe I'll stay in Africa. And that's when he meets Karen. Karen comes in and she's like, hey, are you Peter? I heard you were a primatologist, that you were in this area, top in your field, and that I have easily access to. And he's like, yep, that's me. What can I help you with? She shows him the picture. She's like, I need to know what type of ape this is. He takes a quick look at it and he's like, this is a crap picture. I can't really tell what this is. And she explains to him that it was taken from a live video feed, so that's why it's like that. She's already used all of this technology to be able to sharpen it and enhance it as best as she can, and she needs to know what type of ape this is. And he's like, well, I would say it's a gray ape based on the coloring. He's like, but that's can't be. And she was like, why not? And he's like, because they don't exist. So she's trying to get him to see if he's able to research more what this creature is. And while he's explaining to her what Project Amy is and why he's like, I don't really have time like to identify an ape for you. And she's like, I thought you were a professor, like an intellectual. I thought you would jump at the chance for this. And he's trying to get her to pay him to do that, or at least donate to the project, so that buy him and Amy some more time. And she asks more about Amy, and he's like, all right. He's explaining what Project Amy is to her and like how that goes along with it. And so she's already decided that she's going to take a team to Africa. She's now on the logistics part of it. How am I going to get my team into this part of Africa. She's had her resources team back at home base research the area and build upon what was given to the previous team, what has happened since then. There's a civil war going on. There's the government that is trying to eradicate local tribes in this certain area of Africa that she's planning on going to. So she's trying to get more information to see politically, like what's going on there, like military wise, what's going on there, what are the locals doing, and there's people being evacuated out of certain areas in this one country. And so she's like, well, how am I going to do this? Well, he's talking and rambling on about Amy and the benefits that could come from his research. She's thinking, well, what if I take him? What if I take Amy? That could be my ticket into the country. Since they started locking down the borders, she's like, unless I want to get shot down in a plane or something or be smuggled in, she's like, I could get close to the country if I bring Amy and a scientist. And well, she's coming to this conclusion and logistically thinking like how they will be able to get them over there. Peter's just like, she told Peter that she's going to Africa and that's why she needs the animal identified to be able to find her team. And he just brings up, he was like, well, we can go with you and I'll have my team identify this creature. And she's like, perfect. That works out perfectly. And then Peter's like, well, she agreed really quick. That's pretty awesome. She just agreed so quick. Go meet in my charisma. And so they start getting ready to go to Africa. Karen tells him that he has, I think, like 2 days. She was like, we'll be there in this many days. She's like, you have to go now. And so he hits Amy. He starts explaining what's going on with the project while keeping it away from a lot of their donors. I'm pretty sure it's donors. Trying to keep that information away from the people who give them money so that they don't start freaking out and pull the plug too early. And he gives the pictures to his team and they start trying to identify it. They have to kind of reverse what Karen did to it technologically to get a more based image of what it was and then start running that through all the things. And he's like, all right, you're gonna have to tell me this on the plane. They get on a plane, they start going to Africa. And they get to a country that's adjacent to the area that they need to go into that still has kind of an open border that they can just kind of get into. So they're there and Peter keeps asking all of these questions to Karen of like, where are we going? And when are we getting there? How long will it take us to get there? How will we do it? And he's just asking her all the questions. And once I got on the plane, Karen like mentally shut him out. She's like, I don't care about you. I just need you to sit there, be quiet, take care of Amy while I work on these things. And when they get there, she tells him, she's like, well, we're going to need Monroe. And he's like, well, who's Monroe? And she tells him that he is one of the best arms dealers in Africa. And Peter is really unsure of what to think about this because he's a very tight-laced kind of guy. And he's like, well, arms dealing is bad. So the best arms dealer is probably not the best person that I want around. And so he's threatening to leave Karen and just fly back. And she's like, you can't really do that. And like, you can try, but it's not going to work out that well for you. And she's like, no, to get into the country, we need Monroe. Yes, he's the best arms dealers because he's the best at smuggling into that area, into pretty much anywhere in Africa. And she's like, in some of Asia. So she's like, we need him to help us get into the country. And Peter's asking all the questions and she's like, I know where to meet him. And they start setting up, she calls Travis to start greasing the wheels on getting her to Monroe so she can start it. The way Monroe works is he's a mercenary as well as an arms dealer, and people bid on him to work a specific job. So her and Peter, they leave Amy at the plane with some of their other team. Her and Peter go to his home and they wait there. They're gonna have like a little drink, and they're gonna start the bidding war. And when they get there, they start to see all of the other countries and organizations that are also interested in going into this part of Africa for diamonds. And these are not any diamonds. These are blue diamonds that are estimated to be used in computers and data chips to be able to increase their processing capability and their storage, and it's like a huge find for the technological industry. That's why they're getting the contracts to go find them. And because of how rare they are getting paid a metric shit ton of money to find these blue diamonds. That's why they're just like, team of like 6 people are dead. That's fine. We'll just send some more people and try and get these diamonds. So the word's out about the blue diamonds. They all found out that this team specifically from the, it's like Ertz. The Ertz team was disappeared. They don't know why. They don't have all the information. They just know that the team disappeared around the time where they found the diamonds. So they're using their technology to try and use GPS to find out where they were last known, see if all these other companies and all these other countries who want the blue diamonds for their own reasons to do all of that stuff. So there's like 5 teams there bidding with Monroe. And she sees Monroe and she's like, hey, how you doing? And she's like, well, how many people are here? And he tells her how many people are there. And she's like, how many are like serious? And he's like, you and the Germans. And she's like, okay. And then she sees one of her, I guess, colleagues, somebody who does what she does for a different company. And she sees him there and she's like, oh shit. Like, this guy's really good. This guy is really good. She's like, if they outbid us for Monroe, we are fucked. Like, that's it. We might as well go home now. If we cannot get Monroe, that's it. And so Peter is kind of understanding how big this is and kind of how massive this company is, that he's like, okay, and how much money they have. And he's like, all right, well, I don't really like this whole thing, but I want to get Amy to this area. So, and he's like, there's not really anything I can do right now, so I'm just gonna vibe here. I'm just gonna chillax and be here. And once the bidding starts, one of the Germans get a phone call, and they're just like, all right, we're out, we're done, bye. Nice meeting you. Which freaks out Karen, because she was like, well, what do they know? What do they know that they can do this? Because Monroe is a huge resource. Because of his smuggling and mercenary work, he's able to pretty much get into any country and figure out how to navigate and also be around the locals. So, like, he can be a guide and all of this. So he's like a huge, huge resource. So she's like, all right, if they're trying to not use him, what do they know? And while she's freaking out about this, Monroe is just like, well, I guess you guys can bid all you want. He's like, I guess you guys win the bid. And around this time, once the Germans leave and everything, they're still in this house trying to figure out what's going on. And people come out with guns and they start shooting this house. And so Monroe says, all right, team, I will see you at the airport, at the airstrip. I'll see you in the hangar. Be there in a little bit. And she's like, all right, well, we have Monroe, and Peter's freaking out. So they are able to get out of there with Monroe's help, and they separate. And so she's like, all right, we're going to go here. He's going to be here in this amount of time, so we need to make sure everything's ready so we can fly and get out of here. And they get back to the airplane that they were in, and they find out Amy is missing. And Peter is just beside himself. He is just completely distraught and freaked out and just like does not know what is going on. And he was like, Amy would not leave. Amy would not leave by herself. He's like, somebody took her. Somebody took her. And Karen's like, I knew it. Those assholes. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, the other teams. They stole Amy. They ape-napped Amy. And so Peter is really upset. He was like, why would they do that? Why would they do that? And Karen's like, well, they may think that Amy is a way to find the diamonds. And he's like, why would they think that? And she's like, well, I may have brought Amy up and just kind of let them go with their imaginations, which Peter is super upset about, but she's like, calm down, relax. She pulls out her laptop and she's like, and find Amy. She's like, I need a help. She calls back to Travis home base, all the resources that she has at her disposal. She's like, I need a helicopter and extraction team here right now. She's like, I also need another plane and I need more equipment because this has been tampered with. And so while her whole team is rushing to get all of this stuff to her, Peter's like, I don't understand. And she points at her screen. She's like, right here's Amy. Here's Amy. We're going to go get her, but we can't go on this plane right now. And he's like, why not? And she's like, because the team was here. They took Amy. They probably also sabotaged our equipment and put bugs in the plane. So he's like, well, how would you know that? Why would anybody do that? And she's like, that's what I would do. So we're switching planes, and she's like, I'm going to go get Amy. And she's like, we're going to have a team that go gets her. She's like, you can stay here. You can come with us, whatever. I need you to make a decision. We're leaving in 5. And so Peter's really upset about this, but the team does go find Amy. He finds out that the banana that they gave Amy on the plane, because they're like, well, she would like bananas, right? And Karen had one of her team who gave her the banana put a tracking device inside the banana so that she could keep tabs on Amy. And she also informed Peter that he also has a tracking device. She's like, just in case. And I love how nonchalant she was about all of this. Like, as soon as she saw something was wrong, she just like snapped into like this whole, I am doing a damage assessment, I'm doing this analytically, and then we are going to create a plan of action going on to here. Like, all of this happened within a couple of minutes. And then within 5 minutes, she had a helicopter team there with an extraction team. She flew to where they had Amy. And because Amy is, again, like a teenage girl, she did not take too kindly to being tranquilized and kept. And the other team realized that they couldn't really use her because they don't really know what she was doing, like how to interact with her or anything like that. Like, they didn't have Peter, a primatologist there, who was training her for years and years and years. So they decided that they were just going to have her tranquilized and kept at this one cabin type area in a way long enough to hinder Karen's team so that they could get the lead and they can go and find the diamonds first. So Karen's able to find her. She gets her. She brings her back. Peter's worried because she was tranquilized. He's like, that's going to mess with her chemically and all of this. And Karen's like, I don't care. We just need to get her on the plane. Or this other plane, we need to go now. Monroe shows up and he's like, all right, so where do you need to go? Like, what's going on? She tells them where they need to go and the coordinates and everything. And she's like, all the stuff's up here. He's like, all right. And she's like, we also need to beat all those other teams. And so while they're getting closer to this country on the airplane, they're trying to figure out how to shave days, hours, minutes off of this trip to be able to beat the other team. Because the way it works is kind of like what I assume is like the loot hunters out in the ocean. Like, first come, first, like the first person there is like calls dibs and that's their find. And they get calls on all the resources. Like, he explains all of it in his book, like the whole like laws and how this works on getting these like permits and everything, and with minerals rights and all of this stuff in. Like, it's fully detailed in here. I cannot remember to tell you, but it's in here. So it's like the first person there, like the first team there, they get to call dibs. So she's like, we just need to get there first. So they're like, they have a 2-hour head start on us. Like, we need to cut this down. And they have, it's kind of like an AI type system, not fully AI, but AI-esque GPS type system that they're able to input all of the resources at their disposal and the projected resources at the other team's disposal and kind of compare how quickly each of these teams will get to these coordinates. Now, they're getting a buffer because the team doesn't know the actual coordinates. They have a like 5-mile radius of where the last team was. So they're like, all right, that can buy us some time. Not a lot, but some time. And that only works if they don't have these other specific resources to pinpoint where this team was. So while they're trying to figure this out, Peter is comforting Amy. He's trying to calm her down. He lets her have a martini because that's her treat. That's her wusa. And she's like, all right, she's just kind of calming down now. She's fine. And Monroe finds a way that they can beat the other team by 5 hours. And he shows it to Karen. And Karen asks, like, realistically, how sure are you about this? And he's like, realistically, 90-ish%. He's like, it's gonna be tough, but it can be done. And so they decide to do it. So Monroe's plan is that they are going to fly into a no-fly zone straight into this country that has a civil war going on and are actively shooting down planes because they're going into the no-fly zone to fly into there. And then once the government is locked onto their airplane, they're going to start dropping cargo once they get closer to the coordinates. And then once they get a little bit closer, they're just gonna jump out and parachute down into the jungle and then continue on foot. And he was like, that'll be the fastest way to get there. Because other teams, they're going through red tape. They're going through like other smuggling on land avenues. He's like, which is dangerous because they're cannibalistic tribes that are in the jungle that are coming out of the jungle because of the war and cannibalizing farmers and villagers and anybody who just happens to be in their way once they come out of the jungles. And he's like, and they're so fast, they're so vicious. And he's like, and because of how quick it is, how thorough they are, they're back into the jungle and then nobody can find them. Nobody can find them. So that was one of the risks that he was talking with Karen about. But she's like, we're going to do it. That's our chance. So they don't tell Peter any of this. And therefore he doesn't tell Amy. And Amy does not like flying. She is not a fan. Her getting on the plane in California was her first experience with flying, and they had to kind of sedate her. Peter had to give her some, I don't know if it was exactly Xanax or some Valium, but he gave her some stuff to help her with the flight. And so now he's there. They don't want to figure out. And then once they start getting close, they start telling Peter, like, all right, we're going to need you to put on this. We need you to put on this parachute. And he's like, why? He's like, why would I need a parachute? And the captain, the pilot of the plane is telling them that, they're just starting to fly. They're getting close to the no-fly zone. They're getting calls from air control towers saying, hey, this is a no-fly zone. You need to turn around or you'll be shot down. They go into the no-fly zone, and that's when they start getting all of the equipment and the people ready. And that's when they tell Peter that their plan is they're going to get as close as they can to the coordinates, and they're just going to jump out of the plane. And Peter is like, no. He's like, I will not do that. He's like, and neither will Amy. Monroe is telling him, he was like, that's okay. I will take Amy. I will jump with her. He's like, you don't have to do a thing about it. He's like, and he's explaining to him how to pull his parachute and when to do that. And Peter's just like, no, we are not going to do this. He's like, that is not going to happen. He was like, I'm staying on this plane. And then they tell him, like, well, in about 2 minutes, there's not going to be a plane anymore. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, we flew into a no-fly zone. They're going to shoot us down. And so they give Amy some more sedatives, and everybody starts packing up. they drop the equipment, they parachute out. Peter's freaking out, but while he's parachuting down, he's also in awe of the feeling of parachuting down. I've never parachuted out of a plane, so I can't speak to what that feels like. But if you had, tell me what that is, because it sounds pretty interesting based on the description in the book. And so they land in the jungle, and once they land in the jungle, they get all together. They get all of their equipment that they can have. Karen has mathematically gotten all of the equipment separated in between the team members. Even Amy has a pack that she has to carry, and what will be most like what they will need to survive and to get to the point. So she got all that ready while everything was going down, and then once all the equipment landed there, she's like, all right, we have to leave everything else. This is all we can take. So they start on foot into the jungle, which was just like, okay. And Peter's just like, I don't like this anymore. I am not having fun. But at the same time, he was like, that was very exhilarating. And he checks on Amy. Amy's fine. She's still a little out of it. But they're like, we have to go. So they're all like carrying Amy a little bit with them. And while she goes, she's able to move on her own. And so they're plotting the way. They're checking all of these computer-like GPSs. They are getting the next morning after they make camp and everything. That night, Karen calls Travis back at home base to get an update. He is monitoring the company as best as he can without actually being in their systems. So he is monitoring like political people, he's monitoring military movements, he's monitoring like phone calls, and like kind of like he has people like working on trying to hacking their system. So he knows exactly where these people are. He kind of knows the general area of where they're at, and he tells her that there is a lot of room, that there's a lot of time they need to catch up on. She explained to them that where her coordinates are, she sends all of those digitally. And he was like, how did you do that? And she was like, well, she's like, you don't really want to know that, Travis. And he's like, okay. And she's like, give me an update. And so he's trying to update her on anything politically going on, anything that may be happening. He's telling her that tensions are rising within the military, and they're starting to deploy more troops into specific areas. He's like, stay away from any towns, any villages. And he's like, between the tribes and the military, he's like, everybody that still values their life has been evacuated. He's like, so he's like, it's a killing field out there. He's like, so stay away from that. And he's like, try and stick to the jungle as best as you can. And they got news that the volcano that is at the coordinates that they're going to has showed more increasing signs of activity. And Karen is just like, okay, well, geologically speaking, she's like, this is expected to increase, but it should be till after we've gotten what we need from this area, and it shouldn't be a problem. She's like, we already sent teams over here over to research this. She's like, it's gonna be a while, it's no problem. Even though he's telling her there's increasing activity into it, she's like, yeah, that's to be expected. And so while she's getting all this information from him, she's like, okay. And then after she hangs up with him, she gives it to Peter so he can contact his team back in California to get more information on what type of animal that originally attacked her team. She said that we're going to need more information because we're going to be going into that area, so there's a good chance that we'll be attacked by this thing. She's like, so I need you guys to kind of put up your A game here. And the person on the other side is like, this is a gray gorilla, however, there's no such thing. There's no such thing. And so he's trying to look up like fossil records. He's trying to look up all of these things. And Peter's also telling him, he's like, you might need to go into like local legends, myths, and see where this are. He's like, these kind of country-ish area is where we're at. He's like, as far as I know. And so while they're talking with that, he updates him on Amy and gets a little information. People still haven't realized that him and Amy are missing, but there's chatter that they're going to be losing their funding. And so his team tells him that, and he's like, okay. He's like, well, this was expected, sad but expected. And he's telling him, he's like, I don't know if I'll come back. And so they're like, okay. They talk about that more. He was like, I need you to update me with that information in 24 hours. So he's like, all right, I'll wait on your call. If anything comes up, they give him like some communications information on how to, because this was, when was it? Like 1980. There wasn't like cell phones or sat phones like there is now. So the amount of technology that they had that would be able to kind of get that information to him was pretty astounding in it. And so he gives him all of this. He's like, how do I get a hold of you? Gives him all of that information. Yeah, so they're backpacking through all of this area. And while they're there, they kind of, like, their plane's there, they're going through, they have to cross a field with some farmhouses and everything, and Peter's exhausted. They've been going nonstop. Some of the team's exhausted, Karen's exhausted. Amy is the only one that seems to be having a good time, and Monroe just continues to go. And so they're getting exhausted. They see a field. Peter's just like, can we just go talk to them? He's like, can we just, I would really enjoy to have like a meal in a house. And they're telling him no. And Monroe instructs the team non-verbally to be on the lookout. So they all get into their defensive stances, and Peter doesn't really know what's going on. They pull him down, and Karen's like, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. And Peter's like, well, what's going on? He's like, somebody tell me something. And what Monroe tells him is, and Karen tell him, are that there is a war going on. And Peter's like, I know that. And they explain to him that there are cannibalistic tribes. He's like, they focus on one tribe specifically. I don't know the name of it, but it's in the book. And they're like, this tribe, it happens every time there's a conflict within this country. They start getting spooked and they start becoming more aggressive. And he said in previous wars and previous conflicts, these tribes only came out to villages that were close to the jungle tree line, and these tribes would cannibalize those villagers or anybody in those areas. He's like, well, because of how far the conflict has gone and how like big the conflict is, that this tribe has been coming out further and further from the jungle. And he told him, he's like, we're not going to that farmhouse. And Peter's like, well, why not? And he's like, because there's people in there. And Peter's still not really understanding. He's just like, there's people in there. There could be food in there. They could help us out. We can stay there for a little bit. And Monroe's like, no. So Monroe and Karen uses the research that she had gathered from her previous team, and then more additional research into her current team to explain what's going on to Peter. And Monroe uses his experience as a mercenary and an arms dealer and being in the country, dealing with the people, the local people in all of these countries, to explain to Peter that the cannibalistic tribe is going to come to that area. He's like, we saw them when we were up here on this ridge. He's like, we saw them moving this way. He's like, that's why we went around this way to try and avoid them. He's like, however, they got here first. So they're going to be coming through this little valley area and this little village that's over there. He's like, this farmhouse is here. They're going to hit the farmhouse first. He's like, and this is a wide open field. He's like, we can't move from this area without alerting them that we're here. And he's like, and then we're gonna have to fight a whole tribe off. And he's like, and we are not equipped to do that. And he's like, and we don't want to do that. He's like, so we're gonna stay right here. We're gonna let them go through, and when they're done, we're gonna cross the field and go into the other tree line of the jungle. And the book does a really good job of explaining the history of this tribe and of the, political conflict that happened within this country, within this region. And the history, it does like a brief history, it was a good chunk of pages dedicated to the history of cannibalism in Africa. And it gives resources as well, which I wanted to look through the resources because I was like, well, this is just fascinating. And so it gives some really good information on these tribes. And this is all the things that are explained to Peter, who has no idea. And then we're given like a nudge to the side, just giving us, hey, here's some more information and some more where I got this research, which is pretty great. So while they're waiting there, the tribe does come through forward, and they go into the farmhouse, and there was a family in the farmhouse, and he was like, well, Peter's like, well, now what do we do? Because he starts hearing them scream. He tenses to try and go help, but they stop him. And they're like, there's nothing you could do. There's nothing you can do to help them. There's nothing. And he's like, well, I could have warned them. And Monroe tells him, he's like, people who are still here when this is going on, he was like, will not leave. You know, like they won't leave for whatever reason they have. They're not going to leave their homes. He's like, there's no point to telling them, hey, there's a tribe coming up here, because the threat was already there. And he's like, they're just not going to leave. He's like, there's nothing you could have done. And so they have to sit there and wait while the tribe cannibalizes this family. And they do. And then after a while, they come back out and they leave. And once they leave and they're a safe distance away, the team goes up past the farmhouse, and Monroe tells them, he's like, stay close. He's like, make sure you and Amy don't go near that farmhouse. He's like, it's not going to be a pretty sight. Just don't do it. So Peter and Amy, they follow directions. They go into the other tree line. And Peter is very conflicted about this, about how this all is happening, but he doesn't know like what to do. Like he's feeling conflicted, but he's like, was there really nothing I can do? He's like, am I just telling myself that? Like, I don't really understand. And he is very unnerved by Karen and Monroe's response to this whole thing. Like Karen was just waiting there, working on her computer and just kind of like making sure that she had all her equipment, like double checking things like that, kind of making herself busy with things, but seemed completely unconcerned with the family that was being cannibalized in this house. And Monroe was just like sitting there waiting, playing, like cleaning his nails with his knife, but keeping a lookout on the area to make sure that nobody came towards them. And Peter is upset that he is the only one in this whole team that is like, that seems to care about this. And so they just continue to go. Every time they make camp, they have to call back to home base, and after I think the second day, they start having problems with the communications. And there is this solar flare type event that is happening around this time. And the last time that Karen talked to Travis, he did explain to her that there may be some issues going on, and she's like, yes, I did research this. There's like, they do have this information that this event was going to be happening, and it may affect their communications. So it starts to happen, the solar event, and so she's not able to get in contact with home base, so she's getting a little upset by that, but at the same time she's like, I knew this was going to happen, this is fine, I just need to keep a manual log of what I need to tell Travis, and like all the coordinated information, everything to kind of backlog what's going on, so when they are able to communicate, that she can contact Travis with it. And Travis on the other side of the world is freaking out. Tensions are getting more intense. This country is now, because it's shooting down airplanes, it's starting to shoot down airplanes outside of its own airspace and starting to lose control. Like it's not having any control over its military. Situation's deteriorating very fast. Like all of the political people are being taken out of the country, and Travis is trying to explain to her that there may not be a way for them to pick her up from that area. Like she may have to travel with Monroe, or somebody may have to travel back to like a country and a half away for like a valid pickup. He's like, the situation's deteriorating that bad. Not only that, that the volcano that was not estimated to erupt for like 3 years from now is increasing with its momentum, and it explains why in the book. I can't remember now. I don't remember if it was because of all of the explosions that are going on, or if it's just happened because of something like naturally, but it's starting to ramp up, and the amount of time that it's going to take for this volcano to erupt has gone from 3 years to any minute now. So he's trying to tell her that at this point that she needs to leave. She needs to leave. Like, there is really no saving this mission. He's like, once the volcano erupts, once the military situation goes away, like continues on its trajectory of where it's going, he's like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get her out of here. There's no way that we're going to be able to go back into the country to get the diamonds. He's like, so the contract's a wash anyways. So he's trying to tell her that, but they lost communications because of the solar event. So he's freaking out on how to get information to her. And she's in Africa with a team, and they are on foot walking through the jungle to this coordinates, which is at the base of this volcano that is about to erupt at any time. And they continue to do that. They're just on their way there. And one of the times they're there, because Amy has been super excited. Amy has, the further they've gone into the jungle, the more she's getting away from them. At first, when they first walked, Amy was kind of walking with Peter, like around him, and just trying to be like, carry me, just carry me, please. I don't want to walk anymore. I can't do this. You know, average, if you've gone hiking with a teenager that does not want to go hiking, or just not hiking, just out on a day with a teenager that does not want to be there. It was kind of like that with Amy, and it was really annoying Peter and everybody else, but they were trying to play with her as much as they could in their resting times. And anytime they came across like a stream or anything where there was water there, Amy was like, I can't do it. I'm not going across this. I'm not doing this. So Monroe would tickle her, play with her, and then like pick her up and carry her across. So that was kind of the routine. But the more they get into the jungle, the more Amy is becoming more independent from Peter, which bothers Peter. He's worried that she's going to get lost, or she's going to be taken, or something bad is going to happen to Amy. He says typical parent things. Like, he's like, if she's not right here and I can't see her, something bad is going to happen. And so, but she keeps going, like further and further away, to the point where they are now further into the jungle, and she was gone for like a whole daytime time, and she came back to sleep in their little camp. And Peter's starting to freak out about that, and Monroe's like, she's like, how old is she? And he tells her, he's like, Amy's this many years old. And he's like, well, you can't keep her the way you are forever. It reminded me of somebody talking to a brand new parent. Like, you can't keep them the way they are forever. You're gonna have to let them go. And he brings up, like, she's almost to her mating time, like her mating age. Is like, what happens when she wants to go to stay with other gorillas and everything. And Peter's like, that's gonna be a long time from now. And Monroe's like, maybe not as long, but what do I know? And Peter tells her, he's like, she is going to go with them, and it's going to be fine. And if that's what she wants to do, that's going to be okay. But he's still really worried because, like I said, the further in there, the more independent she is, and it's really bothering him. And so one of the days when she is off just exploring by herself, Peter is like really upset, and then he sees a face in the jungle, and he starts to freak out a little bit. He's worried that it's one of the cannibalistic tribes, and Monroe like grabs him and tells him to calm down, just relax. And he's like, there's people here. He's like, we know. And it's a tribe of pygmies, and he tells him that they have to wait for one of them to approach them before that they can start talking, or else they're going to spook them. They could attack. They could get aggressive. He's like, we have to go by their traditions of their tribe. So Peter's trying his best to do that. One of them does come up, and they are talking with Monroe and a couple of the other guides. And they tell him that there is a man, and they're just kind of like, we need you guys to come with us. We need you guys to come with us. We really need you guys to come with us. And Monroe tells Karen, because Karen's like, I don't have time for this nonsense. We don't have time for this nonsense. We need to continue if we're going to beat the German team. We need to go now. And Monroe explains to her of how that would be a bad idea to insult the pygmy tribe. And he's like, we have this buffer time, and we were able to shave this many hours off of it. And he's like, we can do this. It'll be fine. So she's like, okay, fine. We will go see what they want to see. So they take them, and the pygmies are just like zooming through this jungle, and then stopping and waiting for Karen, Monroe, and Peter to catch up, because they're the only three that's going. The other team members, they're just like, we're gonna stay right here. We got this. Thank you. So they follow the pygmies, and they end up going to a pygmy camp. When they get to the camp, the pygmies are explaining to Monroe that they have a man at their camp who was found in the jungle. And Monroe's explaining this to Karen, and Karen's like, well, that's really terrible, but what does this have to do with us? And they explain that they have he has a patch on his arm, and it's her patch, it's the Ertz team patch. So she's like, okay. She's like, now you have my interest. Take me to this man. She goes to where this man is, and she does say, like, this is the guy. He was on our previous expedition. Peter is standing there like, what's going on? Who is this? And this is the guy on the previous team. And they're asking what happened to him. And so far, the pygmy tribe is like, well, he is kind of catatonic. He moves. They're able to get him to eat. They're able to get him to move, but he hasn't talked since they brought up there. They're like, he's pretty much just, he's there but not there. So they come up to him, and they're like trying to talk to him to see what happened. And once Peter gets close to help him out, to help like Karen to get him to stand up or sit up, he smells Amy. And Amy has a distinct gorilla smell. And the guy smells it on Peter and starts screaming and freaking out, and then dies of fright. So when that happens, they leave him with the pygmies to be buried, and to do the kind of what they need to do when somebody dies, because he was within their little village. So they get back to the other team, kind of explain what happened, but they're all hired people from local countries that are being given like paid a lot of money comparatively, and they were all given like huge insurance policies that'll be paid out to their families. So they're just kind of like, we're not asking questions. And Karen's like, I want to tell them, but I don't want them to be scared off. So they continue to go, and Amy shows back up, and they're like, all right, cool. So after they meet with the pygmies, they continue towards the coordinates, and there's this huge river that they have to cross. Once they're trying to cross this, they're like, okay, we need boats. We also need to do this at nighttime, because there's a problem that like if we wait for daytime, it'll be safer. But we would also lose these hours. Like, or we can go around and go over here, but that'll be miles, and that'll take like 4 hours. And Karen's like, we can't waste that time. We need to go now. So they decide to inflate some rafts and go on this river, and they're trying to calm down Amy about it, and Amy's freaking out. She doesn't like water, but she's in one of these boats. And Peter's just like, why is it super dangerous at night? And Monroe explains to him that there are hippos in this river, and Peter doesn't really understand why that's a bad thing. And Monroe tells him that hippos are one of the most aggressive animals. He was like, and we're headed into their territory. He's like, and they're also like I think the males are awake at night and they're very active at night. He was like, so we're headed into their territory when they're very active. He was like, they're probably, they could attack us. He's like, we could be lucky and we could just get by, but there's a chance that the hippos are going to attack us. And Peter still is just kind of like, hippos? Hippos. That's what's dangerous out here, until a hippo attacks one of the rafts and kills like 3 team members. And then Peter starts freaking out. Amy starts freaking out. Like one of the boats starts deflating because Amy starts freaking out. So they get to the shore and they're able to get across. But they lose some team members, and now the other team members are getting kind of disinterested in continuing. But they all continue to go. And they finally reach the coordinates of where they're supposed to be, where the other team was. They see the remnants of the camp that the other team had. There's blood on things, equipment's broken, stuff is ripped to shreds, and they don't really know what happened at all. And all the information that Peter got from him does point to like these were a new species of gorilla, which excited Peter because he wanted to write some research papers on a new species found of gorilla. And there was like a part in the book where he was daydreaming about what he was going to name the gorillas, and like he was really excited about that until he saw all of this carnage. And now he's like, what did this? And he's explaining to Karen what he kind of figured out what's going on. And he's like, this is an absolutely new type. Obviously, it's aggressive. We don't really know what these gorillas are capable of. So they bury the remains that they can find at the camp and kind of clean it up. They reset up all of their equipment for their camp. They have a automatic firing system that is set up to sensors on the outside of the camp. So once something breaks those sensors, it'll start firing. And it fires rounds at whatever's moving there. And it's like it's a turret. It's an automated turret. So they set up their whole camp. They're like, all right, we're ready to go. It's gonna be fine. And while that's being set up, Karen and Monroe are also looking around the area, and they start finding some ruins in the area. And Peter goes with them. They find this whole city, and it looks like it's very ancient. Nobody's been there. It's all overgrown with vegetation and everything, so you can barely make out things, but you can obviously see buildings and statues. And this is the lost city of Zinj. So what they're able to figure out from this city is that this city was built up around the diamond mines that are attached to, like at the bottom of the volcano. There's like areas to it. It has a built up, like, not like checkpoints, but towers around it. So you can see where the diamond mines go into. And there's this whole city built right around it, on the outside of the mine area. And they are completely flabbergasted about this. They're like, where did this come from? They did hear like rumors of this city, and we're given more information on the rumors of this city and some background on that in the book. And so when they find this city, they're like, what is this? There's statues of people, and there's also statues of gorillas. They start wandering into some of these buildings, and they're like, you can tell what type of buildings these were. And then they head to this one main type building that is near the mines. And when they go in there, like, what is this? Why? It looks like cages that are put into separate rows against the wall. And in the middle, they have more statues of gorillas. And they're like, what is this? This doesn't make sense. Like, is this a dormitory type thing? And they're like, no. Like, none of this makes sense. They are all just completely just shell shocked about what's going on. And Peter's trying to remember what exactly is all like. He's trying to take mentally in everything that's here. He's like, this along with a brand new gorilla species that has not been documented before. And he's like, I am gonna be so on top of all of the academic research for this. He's like, my name will be famous. And he's like, and then all of the funding for research will come in. So he's getting super ecstatic about this. Karen is ecstatic about the diamond mines that she sees over there. She's like, all right, you know what? Tomorrow morning at first light, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to see if we can find those blue diamonds. And Peter's all excited about that. Monroe is just thinking of the monetary value of this find and what his cut will be. Because as a part of his bidding contract thing, he gets a percentage. So he's excited about that. And they all go back to the camp and they're like, all right, great. We found where we needed to go. We don't know what those things were, if they're going to come back, but they're like, we're going to set up base here. We're fine. We have our defense systems up. She makes sure that everybody has ammo for their guns that were passed out when they were originally got their equipment. So she's like, all right, okay, here we are. And Amy's there, and Amy is feeling a little agitated. She's not feeling great. She's feeling like a little jumpy. And when night comes around, that's when shit hits the fan for them, because the gray apes that originally attacked the first team attack them. So the turret goes off. There's rounds flying everywhere. Nobody really knows what's going on. It's a little chaotic. And they're able to kill, I think, like 2 or 3 of these apes. And they also lose another 2 members of their team. And it was this huge attack. It was a huge attack, and after it was done, after they killed some of their team, the attack stopped, the gorillas left. And Monroe is kind of freaking out. He's like, they seemed very organized. He's like, they did not attack like an animal would attack. He's like, they were very organized. And so he's freaking out about that. They're trying to check the equipment, and there's some rounds left in the turret. Some of their equipment is completely trashed. Peter's freaking out and calming down Amy, and that's just kind of how they go. When First Light shows back up, they bury the team members that were killed, and they notice that there are no really gorillas around. There are appendages of some of the gorillas, but what they did notice was the gorillas that were killed at the edge, they were pulled back by the other gorillas and they were taken with them. So there's no bodies of the gorillas. And that's starting to like really freak Monroe out. Monroe is telling Karen, he's like, we should leave. He's like, we will not survive another attack by these gorillas. He's like, there's absolutely no, he's like, the way that they are organized, he's like, I don't know how many of them. He's like, I counted like 8 last night. And he's like, how many did you count? She's like, I counted about 8 to 10. And so he's really freaking out about that. Karen's like, we found the diamonds. It's fine. Everything's going to be fine. We found where the diamonds are. She's like, I just need to double check to make sure that these are the right diamonds that we need to have. And once that's happening, she's like, we'll bring in a team. She's like, we'll clear out. We'll set up a whole fort here. And so Monroe's upset about that. She's like, okay, I'm going to go over there and explore. And she's like, she reasons that they're nocturnal. So she's like, they won't attack me in the daylight, right? Like, they seem to attack only at night, so it should be fine. So, but Peter and Karen are very kind of excited. They're both kind of scared, but they're very excited about the find. Peter's trying to find Amy. Karen goes to the diamond mines and finds some blue diamonds. Like they're small because they're at the edge of the mine, but she is able to find some of it, and she makes sure that she keeps those in her bag, so she's like proof that they are here. And Monroe is trying to set up some defenses back at the camp to make sure that everything is ready for that night's next assault. And Peter, well, he's trying to find Amy. Monroe catches up to him, and he asks him what he could possibly know about these creatures. And Peter's like, I know absolutely nothing about these creatures. And Monroe's like, well, take a guess. He's like, you're a primatologist, right? Take a guess. And Peter is giving information that he knows based off of other gorillas, like the silverback gorillas. And he was like, however, they do not attack like that. He's like, they do not do that. He's like, that's not something gorillas do. He's like, so I'm not really sure. And Monroe asked him, he's like, how many do you think there are? And he was like, well, based on the males that we saw last night attacking us versus usual gorilla male to female ratio, he was like, there could be hundreds of them. He was like, it could be tens of them, like dozens. He's like, could be hundreds. He's like, I have no idea. He was like, but there's a lot based on those numbers of what we saw last night. So while they're talking about this, they're still kind of trying to find Amy, and they come up to this ledge. And when they go over this ledge, they pull over some leaves and everything, and they look down into this little valley area that's next to the city. And when they look down into this area, they see hundreds of gray gorillas. They see them like sleeping, they see them lounging, they see them eating and grooming, and they're just all of these. They see females there, they see babies there, they see the males over there, and Peter is just like wow. And Monroe is like, oh shit. Like, we are so dead. And so while they're looking at this, they're trying to take in this, and Monroe's trying to like do defensive math of what they can hold off and what they're capable of. And he's like, we need to talk to Karen. We need to get out of here now. And while Peter is like over this ledge, he falls down right in front of these female gorillas and some of their babies. And he's like trying to think of what he remembers of gorilla attacks, and if you're confronted with a gorilla, like what should you do. And so he's doing all of that stuff, and he's like, I'm dead, they're gonna kill me. And a male comes up and is getting close to him, starting to growl, show his teeth, everything. And then out of nowhere, Amy jumps in front of him, and Amy is signing to them because she communicates through sign language. I don't know if I said that, but she communicates through sign language, and she's telling them to go away, that this is her baby. And the gorilla kind of freaks out because he's never seen a gorilla like Amy. And she jumps in and she pulls Peter to her and starts like rocking him and tries to explain that baby. And then she starts growling at this other gorilla when he steps closer, just like, a female gorilla would when a male gorilla gets too close to the baby. So she starts pretending Peter's her baby, and the gorilla is just confused and then like walks away. And Amy and Peter are able to get away. So when Karen gets back to camp, Monroe's like, we need to leave right now. We got to go. Karen's still like, we're going to be fine. And Peter's like, there are hundreds of them. We are not going to be fine. We need to leave right now. But they don't. So it's getting later in the day, and the gorillas attack before nighttime falls. They are not waiting. And when they attack, Monroe is fairly confident in the defenses he set up based on how he saw that they were moving. Except when it starts getting dark and they're attacking, they start knocking over trees to set off the sensors, as well as it was an electric fence around that he was able to set up. They push a tree over it. So the turret starts firing at that tree trunk, and then they push another one over, and that short circuits the electric fence around there. And so they're like, oh shit. Like that's the defense is gone. He hands Peter a rifle, and he was like, this is it. And they start going over the tree trunks to go and attack them. So while they're trying to do this, Peter is thinking that maybe we just came into their territory. He thinks back to those room cages that he saw and has rationalized that in this lost city of Zinj, what the ancient peoples have done to police their diamond mines, because they couldn't trust like people to do it, was they specifically bred these type of gorillas, this new species of gorillas, and trained them in this city and housed them there and everything to be their police force and guard these mines. And when the city or civilization collapsed for whatever reason and the people were gone, the gorillas stayed. But without anybody to control like their breeding or anything, their population, they just expanded and continuously stayed in this one area. So they're just doing what they were bred to do. The team from Earth came in and invaded on their territory, and they took out the team from Earth. And he said the other guy was able to get away. They did not chase that other guy down. So if they get out of the territory range of these gorillas, they should leave them alone. And so Peter tells them, he's like, we need to get out of their territory. He's like, they should leave us alone when this happens. So they don't really know where those territory lines are. So they're starting to fire at the gorillas, and they're starting to run back the other way. They grab what they can. Amy is there, and she's helping them out, try and get out of there. Monroe's shooting, Karen's shooting, the team members shooting, and they lost, I think, one other team member during this. And they're running there. And while they're running away from the gorillas, there is also an earthquake that happens at the mountain. So the volcano is getting ready to erupt. It's not erupting yet, but it's getting close to erupting. So it's starting to have earthquakes there. And Karen knows that once the earthquakes start, when this volcano erupts, it's going to collapse the diamond mines, or they're going to be flooded with lava, and there's no way of getting to those diamonds. So she's upset, but she's just like, there's nothing we can do. So they're running away. The gorillas are still chasing them. The volcano is ready to erupt, and they finally get out of the territory range of what they think is the territory range. They're not being chased anymore, so they're very relieved and just like, all right, we did it. And Karen still logged the coordinates, and she's kind of making a plan of how she could get back to these diamonds and get them before everything just goes to shit. And when they're running away, they leave one territory, they end up into this other territory of these cannibalistic tribe. So they're trying to get away from the gorilla, and they just keep walking. They're just like, we're just going to keep going away from these gorillas. And they realize that they're being followed. So they start running again. And they end up like running, just barely keeping in front of this tribe. And then the tribe catches up to them. But by the time the tribe catches up to them, they're able to find where their plane crashed, and that they originally dropped down to. They see where their plane crashed, and they go into the plane, and the tribe is on the outside trying to get in, but they can't break open the doors or anything. So they're just like on the outside, like banging on the plane, trying to get them to come out. And while they're doing this, like Peter and everybody's inside, and they're just like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Like, how are we going to survive this? Is there like any more weapons in these equipment crates? Because not all of the equipment was dropped out of the plane, just the pertinent things that Karen was like, we need these packs specifically, and we need this. Like, those were the only things that were dropped. All the extra equipment was kept on the plane. So they start breaking open these equipment crates and starting to see what they could do. They don't find any more of the defense systems or any more guns or ammo or anything like that. And Monroe's just like, he's like, this is how it ends. This is how it ends. I'm gonna be eaten by a tribe. He's like, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. It's not how I thought I would go, and I'm not here for it. And Karen's just kind of being really upset. Like, she's she's just completely depressed. Like the whole thing that she wanted to do is just falling far away from her. And at that time, that's when the volcano starts erupting. So the tribe outside, the tribe members outside are starting to get more animated or everything, and more earthquakes are happening, and the volcano starts erupting. So when she realizes the volcano is erupting, she's like, that's it. That I can't go back there. She's like, that's it. She's like, everything I have tried to do, everything I have done up to this point has been for nothing. And so she's depressed by it. She's like, well, not really for nothing. She still has like some small chunks of diamond in her bag. But she's like, this is pretty much all for nothing. And she's just really upset by this. And so Monroe's upset, Karen's upset, Peter's still trying to dig through all of this stuff, and Amy's there, and they're just like, okay. And he is able to find materials to build a hot air balloon. So when the volcano started erupting and everything and started just kind of going over, it scared off the tribe. So the tribe decided that they were in a not safe area, so they left. And that's more when Karen and Monroe started getting upset. They're like, we can't outrun lava. Like, it's going to catch up to us, and we're not going to be able to live. And Peter is super excited because he found materials to build a hot air balloon. So he does this like hot air balloon with the help of Karen, with the help of Monroe. They're able to get onto it and lift them up enough that they are safe from the lava that is coming down. And they're able to steer this hot air balloon, kind of, and they're able to get close to a border. Then they get away from the lava, they drop down, and they make their way to a border. And then from there, Monroe leads them out of the area. Karen is able to contact Travis back at home base, tell them that she is alive, and that there was a loss of, like, she tells him all the things that are happening. He starts to send an airplane to them, and he was like, so you guys would be fine, everything like that. And he's like, so was it a total failure? And she tells him that because of the eruption of the volcano, like, those mines are lost. They're lost, they're gone. However, she was able to get some, like, and she tells him the size and weight of the diamonds that she got, and he was like, well, it's not, I guess, a total loss. He was like, I guess technically we did fulfill the contract. And he was like, I'll have a plane there for you. You're going to come home. You're going to be fine. And that's kind of where the book leaves us with the story, which was crazy. Like, all of that craziness happened within like the last chapter and a half of the book. And it was a ridiculous amount of detail, which I thought was great. Yeah, it tells you where all the things were, like, day 13 of this expedition. So day 13 from when the first team was originally attacked. That's when all of that happened. And that was the last, I can't count, 20 or so pages of the book. Yeah, that was the last like 20 pages or so where all of this happens. So after that, we're given the epilogue, which is pretty great. Because of the amount of diamonds that she was able to bring back, they were able to prove that yes, there was these things, but due to natural disasters, there is absolutely no way to fulfill this contract, and it was canceled out. Like, even her bringing back that was just like, oh, sorry, we can't get to the source of this, so we're gonna have to cancel out this contract. So everything she did was for nothing. So she quits, and she goes to South Dakota and works for the U.S. Geological Survey. And she ends up pretty well. Like, she finds a husband, like they're happy together, they have children, and she's just living her life that way. And Peter makes a new research area in Africa, and he is able to kind of continue the Amy project there, except Amy has been accepted into a group of silverback gorillas that are in that local area. So he sets up his whole research center in Africa, and it's open to this jungle area to where silverback gorillas are. So as time goes on, Amy stops showing up as much. Amy is out there more and with Peter less. And when she was gone for months at a time and Peter was getting worried that she died or was just moved to a different area or something like that, she comes back with a baby gorilla. And she doesn't let Peter get close to her or the baby, but he's able to see it and is really surprised and happy that she has a baby gorilla, and also notices that the baby gorilla is using signs. And so he gets super excited about that fact because the signs that he taught to Amy are being taught to this baby gorilla, and so now the baby gorilla is able to communicate that way. And he's thinking of research-wise how that has affected her with the wild gorillas, and he has noticed that they had also started using signs, and so he is super stoked about that. But after she leaves from showing him that baby, she never shows back up. And he just continues his research into gorillas in Africa there, but he never sees Amy again. One of the team members, Kanga, returned to Nairobi in 1979, working in a Chinese restaurant, which went bankrupt in 1980. He then joined the National Geographic Society expedition to Botswana to study hippos. The other team member that was alive is Aki Bara, the eldest son of the Portal Morwani and the radio astronomer in Cambridge, England, won the... Oh, I'm sorry. This is the child of one of the ones that died. Won the something prize in 1980 for research on X-ray emissions from the galactic source M322. And this one was the crazy one. At a handsome profit, Charles Monroe sold 31 carats of blue type 1-pound diamonds on the Amsterdam Bourse in late 1979. The diamonds were purchased by Intel Incorporated, an American micronics company. Subsequently, he was stabbed by a Russian agent in Antwerp in January 1980. The agent's body was later recovered in Brussels. Monroe was arrested by an armed border patrol in Zambia in March 1980, but charges were dropped. He was reported in Somalia in May, but there's no confirmation. He still resides in Tangier. I just want a book about Monroe's life. I'm like, that'd be so crazy. But that was Congo. That was a lot. It was a lot pushed into this little book. And even with the epilogue, it's 313 pages. And this was one of my favorite movies growing up. And I didn't know it was made from a book until I was like in my 20s. And I read it for the first time recently. This is the first time I've read it, and I really enjoyed it. I read some of Michael Crichton's other books, and I was just like, I was really surprised about how much I like those, and I really enjoy how much science he puts into it, so it all makes sense, and you get all of this background information, so you are up in the loop with what's going on with him and his books. And it is one of my favorite movies still. It's one of my favorite books now. I gave this a 5 out of 5. I really enjoy it. But that was us talking about Congo. Have you guys seen the movie? Have you guys read the book? I know there was another person who was talking about reading Jurassic Park for the first time, and I have that book on my shelf and I can't wait to get to it. I read it once, but reading it again will be so great. And the movie came out in the 90s. I really enjoy how Karen was in the book versus the movie. I think it was just so much better. I do like how they had Tim Curry in the movie to kind of help us along with all of this extra information, since he was just this rich guy. And that was pretty great. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope you guys have an amazing day, night, afternoon, whatever it is where you are. Don't forget that there's a link in my in the description for my Discord if you guys want to hang out with me, and my socials for Twitter, for Storygraph if you guys ever want to buddy read, see what I'm reading at the moment. And don't forget to check out the rest of the That's What She Read playlist, which is more in-depth reviews or information about books that I'm reading, also like what I'm reading monthly. And then there's the TLDR playlist, which is too long, didn't read. It is very short, condensed versions, missing on a lot of detail, but of these books that I'm reading as well. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Just don't forget to do all the YouTube things, like, subscribe, all of that stuff, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.